Thank you for attending this session today. This is the Think Big series. With us today is Manisah Sarujee of Brand Geeks Inc., where she will speak on brand survival tips. And I am Leilanie, and later on I will share on values for lasting family business brands. So I'll pass it to Manisah to introduce herself and also to start her session.
Hi, Leilanie. Thank you so much for the opportunity for us to share about what we feel brands should do in order to survive the new normal. So a bit of introduction about us. So we've been around for about 9 years, and during the 9 years we've been nurturing legendary brands that changed the world. And some that you may have heard about would include My Taxi, known as Smart Selangor. We've got Menara Optometry, Harta Maintenance, Mardak, part of the Syed Bukhari Group, and some up-and-coming ones like Quirk, looking at helping companies optimize their costs by using giggers instead of full-time workers, and of course Evanesys that support webinars like the ones that we're having right now. And essentially what we do, we provide not just design support, but we do strategy, we do design, creatives, and also engagement support. And we are pretty much industry agnostic, so we've covered quite a number of industries already. I've been doing consultancy actually for 23 years. So what I hope to do today is to be able to share some of my experiences from doing consultancy and also working with different types of brands the last 9 years in order to help the participants explore the various things that they could do in order to survive during the new normal. So, of course, when you talk about the new normal, the question is the new normal confined to just the MCO or lockdown period? Or are we talking about 6 months or 12 months after that? So, of course, the MCO and lockdown itself has pushed and I think has inspired a lot of brands to try things or do things in different ways. But when you look at the situation after that, I think a lot of brands are very, very concerned because they can't really see what's going to happen after that. They don't know what to expect, but what you can see is that this is something, if you talk about the pandemic, right, it's something that has hit the whole world globally, and it's affected trading, and you can see that a lot of changes have resulted, not just to the way that people do business, but even down to consumer behavior that affects how brands can survive. Yeah. But before I go into the tips, I'd like to just take a step back and run through the branding and marketing sales cycle with everybody, because I think there's been some confusion as to what's involved when you're trying to get a brand out to market. Of course, you know, when for the early stage ones, they're probably going for sale right away. But for family businesses, I think when you've been around for a number of years, I mean, when we worked with Menara Optometry, Harta Maintenance, and Sunshine Mastercare, they've been around for 25 to 35 years. And we find that I think that there is a lot of question about how they keep themselves relevant and relatable to the target customers, not just during times of pandemics like COVID, but essentially to survive the different generations of consumers that they are targeting. So whatever it is, each brand, they must go through the cycle. And it starts with, of course, choosing suitable products, services, and purpose. So most likely for family businesses, the first generation will be setting the purpose of the brand. But as you go along, you do still need to continuously ensure that the brand has relevance to the target customers all the time. So when you look at the target customers, right? So this is the time when brands really need to ask themselves, and insofar as the customer journey or the customer experience that you're looking at, is the product and services that you're looking at relevant to them? Would they want the product and services that you're trying to push to them? So this is a question that you need to answer all the time, actually, just when you're facing a pandemic. And then once you've decided what products and services or the purpose that you want to fulfill, and you've identified the customers that will match these products and services and purpose, you can't stop at just that. You do need to go on to look at what the competitors are doing, and benchmark. Are you doing anything less than what they're doing? Obviously, if you can do more, it's better. Then from there, what you need to do is you need to make sure that the brand identity and the brand message that describes what you do, describes your brand, is something that is unique. Questions that I do get is, when you talk about brand identity, what do you mean? So in the brand identity that's articulated in the brand message, essentially there are three elements that you need to cover. Number one would be the why, i.e. the mission, the purpose of the brand. Number two would be the how, and number three would be the what. So as you can see from there, the why, once it's set by the first generation, it could be subject to some tweaks by the second generation, but most likely it's the how and what that would be updated to keep current with the requirements of the target customer. And sometimes you might even choose to change the target customer if you still want to keep to the same product, services, and purpose. So once you've sorted all that out, which is what we refer to as the branding phase, that is when then you move on to marketing, which starts with planning, of course. Planning, strategizing, then you move on to rolling out, and then you can look at sales. And this cycle is a cycle that all brands needs to go through all the time. But of course, the question is, when it comes to times like now, when we are going through the new normal, right? Do we still have to update all these elements that we've got in the cycle? The answer is yes. You need to, if you talk about brand survival, as part of your brand continuity plan or business continuity plan, you need to look at number 1 until number 10 to ensure that you stay relevant, to ensure that you still make money. Okay, so now when you talk about the four tips, which is essentially 4 steps in how a brand could reset or kickstart its digital journey. So here, I'd like you guys to acknowledge that you can fall into either one of the categories. Now, if you've been somebody that's somewhat been online, you've had your website, and then you've been been using Facebook to communicate with your clients, for example. So during times like this, you need to look at a reset because you got to do a lot more, right? And the second group of people or businesses will be the ones who have not been online at all, and they need to kickstart their whole digital shift to look at how they can go online, not just for brand awareness, but maybe even to look at fulfillment of their products and services. So let's get to it then. So tip number 1, you need to reinforce your digital assets and your channels. So when we're talking about digital assets and channels, I guess one basic question that you start with is, do you have a website? Do you have a website that is current? Because sometimes what happens is that, you know, you've got a website up like a few years ago, and you don't update it. And even worse, when some of the features have changed such that your website may not be easy to maneuver when you're using mobile, because nowadays people use a lot of mobile, right? And is your website integrated with your social media? Is your website integrated with tools like MailChimp, ActiveCampaign, HubSpot, so that you can use it for email marketing, so that you can do marketing and remarketing to people who have subscribed to your website? And is your website connected to other types of marketing tools which is relevant to you, that could help you maximize your reach? Now, when it comes to reinforcing your digital assets and channels, I do get questions like, well, what if I have so many different types of products? I have so many different partners I work with for different offerings. What do I do? So this is where, when we were looking at the branding, marketing and sales cycle, one of the things that you need to address if you're in such a position is that you need to look at your brand architecture, so that when it comes to explaining about what your brand is, it will make sense. People can understand why, on one hand, you're in manufacturing, and on the other hand, you're in training of entrepreneurs, for example, right? And so now that you've looked into whether your website is current and it's integrated, the other question that you need to ask yourself is, when it comes to your digital marketing efforts. So I've got clients that come up to me and tell me, Manisah, I finally found somebody that could do some digital marketing for me, that could handle my ads, that could handle my SEO and my SEM. And all these terms are something that they relate to digital marketing. But what you need to do if you're in such position is you have to ask yourself, has your digital marketing efforts, have your digital marketing efforts resulted in conversion to sales? Have you been making any returns, so that you've got some ROIs out of the initiatives? Because if you've not, then you've really got to take a step back and review your decision on the investments in digital marketing, right? But related to that, I think the challenge that a lot of people have is because it's using like different tools, like for example, like I could be using Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and I'm also spending money on Google Ads as well. But when it comes to a single view of how much money I'm making from how much money I'm spending, I could struggle because there's all this data that I need to bring together to form a view of whether what I'm doing makes money or not, or makes sense or not. So tracking is something that you need to look into as well. Don't waste money if you're not ready to track it. Don't put in a lot of money if you don't have a way to track the outcome of what you're doing. So essentially, that's the first step. Reinforce your digital assets and your channels. Okay. So the second one, innovate for digital delivery. So when you talk about this one, I think it gets a bit challenging because different businesses have different ways of delivering their value proposition. So you've got the ones that involves selling of physical products. So for you guys, one thing that you need to do is you need to explore how can you execute the sales or the purchase of your products by using online. Some people, they set up their own e-commerce, but others, they write on those like Lazada, Zalora, and food. You can see that using those like Grab helps you a lot because you don't have to spend on the technology or the platform, but you can just set up your shopfront in those different platforms. And in your case, you definitely need to have a delivery service provider or partner, so that when it comes to the delivery, you can make sure that the product gets to the front door of your customers once they have purchased online. All right. So for those of you who are in services, all right, what you need to do is you need to look at your process flow, and then you got to make sure that you consider using technology to support you in those different stages of the process flow. So for example, when it comes to meetings, start using things like Zoom, Google Meet, and you know, try to make the meetings online, because if your customers are afraid of, you know, having all these meetings face to face, then you got to respect them. And by using these tools, it helps you because you can get the jobs going and completed by doing everything online. And then secondly, when you want to deliver content, consider using webinars as a platform, like what we're doing right now, Leilanie. This is good because we're able to actually share and train using technology. And in fact, this is a very good opportunity to reach a wider audience, because if you do a face-to-face thing, most likely you're able to only capture people who can come to your classes or your sessions. But if you use online, what that means is that you can even have people coming from other countries dialing up. I think today a few people are dialing in from China, I heard. So that just proves my point that you can have a better reach when it comes to video conferencing. All right. And then of course you've got the ones that require physical space to deliver what they do. Like the barbers, the restaurants, right? So they need physical space to deliver their products and services. So for folks like this, of course, when you talk about food, so they've managed to survive by using the delivery options, right? But there are some types of products or services where you really can't use delivery. So options that you might want to explore would be using pre-sales. Sell now, use later. And I do see quite a lot that use discounts as a way to get people to pay now or to buy up your products or services. But because the fulfillment cannot be done without you being there, so this is where it takes me to the next question. So what do you do if, let's say, you have a combination? Maybe now you need a place to deliver the products or services, but now because of the fear of COVID, you know, people just won't come to, say, get a haircut from you, right? So in that case, what you should consider is look at changing the way that you do things. So what if you could run training sessions or webinar series teaching people about how to cut their hair, and you supply the tools to them and you get it delivered to their doorsteps. So these are just some ideas of how you can innovate in a situation where you cannot reach the customers the way that you normally do. All right. So that's tip number 2. So tip number 3, adapt your marketing strategy. So in this case, essentially there are 2 parts to it. One is about the channels that you're using in order to do your marketing. Number 2 is essentially the messaging. So when it comes to the channels, quite clearly, you need to reduce direct marketing. You need to reduce using events as a way to do marketing. Because if you spend on these 2, you'll find that the take-up, at least during the next 6 months, it might be a little bit slow because people are still in fear of the effect of all this interaction. Although the intention is really to get them to know more about your brand. So what you need to do is you need to explore using technology as a way to reach your target customers. And then when it comes to messaging, now that we're into the last week heading towards Raya, right? So I think a lot of you will be organizing or coming up with your Raya greeting. So our advice is make sure that it's not just your Raya greeting, but it's all your communication. Make sure that you're COVID-19 and MCO sensitive. An example, so if I take the Raya greeting as an example, like in the past, normally most of our meetings we focusing on being together, visiting each other. So in a COVID and MCO environment, that's really not the right thing to do because people are be very limited by the amount of visits that they can do. And when it comes to social distancing, that's something that is pertinent, right? So you need to think about those things. Make sure that the communication is relevant to what's going on right now. Now, when it comes to customer service, some companies, they're cutting down on customer service, but actually you do need to ramp up your customer service. But when I say ramp up, you don't necessarily have to have double the people that normally makes the calls to your clients. But what you can do is you can make sure that all the necessary questions or information that your customers need are available on all your social media in your website. And some of our clients even use chatbots or FB Messenger as a way to handle or take questions. Because using these tools, they can actually automate the questions and answers that can be exchanged between the bot and also the customers. So I have had questions with regards to adapting marketing strategy with regards to timing. So it's like, how far should I stretch my adaptation of for the new normal? Should it be what, 6 months, 12 months? How long should I plan or strategize my marketing? So the answer to that is really back to how much changes do we project in the business environment, at least as far as we can see lah. So now with the fact that like for Malaysia, because the MCO right now, it has been announced that it's going to be up to 9th of June for now, right? So during the MCO or lockdown period, what brands need to do is essentially have shorter term plans or strategies to take them from one point to the next point. So if, let's say, announcements of the MCO is being done like bi-weekly, so bi-weekly, and in recently 4-weekly, right? So what you need to do is you need to review your marketing strategy based on that period, so that it's easier for you to kind of like plan what you want to do, because you know that you know what are the things that you can and cannot do during the 2 weeks or the 4 weeks. But after the MCO or the lockdown has been lifted, so what brands can do is maybe stretch it a little bit longer. I would stretch it to like maybe 2 months, 4 months, and that allows you some time to tweak the plan if, let's say, there are any other changes that comes up after 2 months or 4 months, but not like you normally do. I think in the past, what companies could do is get away with like a 1-year plan, a 1-year marketing strategy. But I don't think it's a good idea, because that's too long. Many things can happen in between. All right. So then, so that's tip number 3, adapting marketing strategy. Tip number 4, promote with compelling content. So here, now, you need to actually make sure that you balance information and creativity. Don't roll out lots and lots and lots and lots of contents. But when it comes to the level of information, it does not lead to any kind of funneling of leads for sales, right? So you got a balance between information and creatives. Now this is going to be a bit about what we talked about just now, because when you talk about the strategy and the campaign rollout, these are like 2 things that need to relate to each other. Okay, so just now I said that when you come up with a strategy, you make sure that the strategy is long enough within the confinement of periods that make sense, right? During MCO, based on the periods of MCO announcements, and after that, maybe 2 months to 4 months. So that's set, right? But when it comes to the the contents that you're rolling out, that needs to be fluid. You need to keep it fluid. You need to keep it current. You need to make sure that the information that you're sharing ties back to the brand identity and the messaging that you've already set at the beginning of the MCO period. So this is to make sure that when it comes to engagement with your contents, that that you get higher engagement. How do I see this? So what you need to do is you need to look at when you post your contents, how people respond to your contents. Do people share? Do people like? So if you don't see this kind of activity, right, you will find that when it comes to how compelling the content is, maybe it's not compelling enough because people are not responding to what you're trying to share. And I think what a lot of businesses do is that they tend to focus on hard sell contents quite a bit. So when they focus too much on promoting the product, you find that people may not be interested to engage with you much because you're always trying to sell to them. So you need to ensure that the contents that you come up with is engaging. So for one of our clients, Quirk, so what we do is that we've set the marketing strategy for 3 months, 4 months, and then when it comes to the contents, every week we're looking at what would be the relevant information to push to their target customers. And in their case, they've got demand and supply. They've got 2 different sets of target customers. So every 2 weeks, we make sure that there is communication with the target customers, and we always keep the relationship warm. And the last very important point is that when it comes to marketing, I think as a business owner, when you put in a single cent in your marketing budget, you always expect to get the results pretty much immediately. But here's the thing: when it comes to normal circumstances, when you put in money in marketing, you need to let that marketing effort run a little bit. And sometimes you can't expect that you will get the leads like immediately today. Sometimes the leads that you get is actually for the future. But whatever it is, you need to find a way to make sure that you harvest those leads and you follow up on those leads, and you close the leads when the time is right for each and every one of your target customers, right? But of course, sometimes I think the question that I get is this, because earlier on I said that once you have your brand promise in place, you have to make sure that all your communication ties back to the brand promise, right? But the question that I get from some of my clients is that, Manisah, do I need to repeat my brand promise in every single collaterals that I come up with? So the answer to that is everything is with balance, okay? You need to make sure that whilst you have your brand promise related content, so for example, like with the MCO and the lockdown, so what I think quite a number of my customers do is that they come up with these promotion videos or posters that talk about what to do or not to do during a COVID situation, how to wash your hand, why you have to wear a mask all the time. But what I tell them is that you make sure that when you, sequence your communication, you got to make sure that there's a balance of communicating on the brand promise and communicating on other things, right? And I have this thing that I do. I call it a visual scroll test. So when you go into your Facebook page or your LinkedIn or your Instagram or your website, what you need to do is you need to do a scroll test and look at what is visually, what are you seeing from scrolling. is it all just hard sell contents? Is there some sharing about the story about the brand? Is there some sharing about other things that matter to the target customers? You got to think about all that. So in running through the 4 tips on brand survival, actually you find that the fundamentals are the same, whether it's MCO and lockdown or not. The fundamentals are still the same. But of course, in an MCO and lockdown situation, there are certain things that would be pertinent, that would be more relevant to the circumstances that we have. For example, like impact of social distancing, to the ability to communicate with your customers, to deliver to your customers, to reach them, and to convince them to actually take up your products and services. Yeah. So at the end of the day, what everybody needs to do as the next step, you need to conduct what we call a digital brand survival audit. Essentially, what I shared with you just now, those are the kind of things that you need to check and ensure that you know where you are as a starting point. And as you go through the new normal, at each checkpoint, and when I say each checkpoint, at the end of every, I guess, bucket of marketing strategy that you're using, what you need to do is you need to continuously review your position, right? And if, let's say, you're not very sure about what you need to do and you need some help on this, what you can do is you can reach out to me. I've shared with you my email, and there's this link that you can also I will share with you the link in the chat shortly, so you can register on this form, reach back out to us, and then we'll try to see what we can do for you. But basically, in the MCO, lockdown, COVID-19 situation, in order brands to survive, you need to take your digital position. You need to have a digital position. If you don't, then you find that it's going to be very hard for you to survive. It's going to be very hard for you to be remembered by your target customers, because competitors are coming in very, very aggressively. All right. Okay. So Leilanie, I think we're taking questions later on, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So I'm going to hand over back to Leilanie.
Okay, thank you so much, Manisah. So if you can, I will now share my screen. Give me a second. So Manisah spoke on survival tips, for your brand. I will now focus on what are the values that you need, for a lasting family business brand. As mentioned earlier on, BinaPavo is a family business advisory firm, and we have been in existence since 2013. Now let's look at what it looks like globally. When we look at the percentage of family business contribution to the national GDP, for Malaysia, you could see that we are at about 67.2%. And as we move further to the right, you could see that countries like Philippines, Brazil, and Mexico has between about 76 to about 90% of the national GDP being contributed by family businesses. In terms of employment, the percentage of workforce family businesses employs is about 65%. So you could see that family business is something large, in terms of the contribution, not just to the economy, but also in terms of employing workforce. Moving on, these are some of the brands that you are familiar with. We have Samsung, we have Genting in Malaysia, in Europe, you know, brands like IKEA, BMW, Virgin, and on to America, Johnson and Johnson is something that you use, yeah, almost every day, yeah, especially if you have small kids. So I like to share this quote. It's important to realize that brand is much more than a logo and a slogan. A brand is who your company is, how you function and make decisions. Now, so in a family business, the dynamics of relationship and emotion, yeah, it's huge. Yeah, you need to manage emotions, you need to manage relationship. Then only decisions can be made. Yeah, so when it comes to looking into a branding strategy, if, for example, it's difficult to get it through to the next generation or to convince the current generation, it's important then to address things like communication, or if there is any such conflict matters that needs to be addressed. Let's look at some of the core values in family business. Yeah, this particular exercise is usually done with our clients. We ask them what are some of the core values in your family business, and this word cloud shows you, you know, respect, honesty, integrity, hard work, trust, ethics seems to come up a lot. Yeah, this is another workshop that was carried out with the Malaysian Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrator. We asked them, what do you think are the core values of your existing clients, which are family businesses? And things like values such as integrity, loyalty, sustainability, responsibility, honesty comes up. Yeah, so if we were to compare response by family businesses as opposed to responses from a company secretaries and administrator, you could see somewhat of similarity there. So this is IKEA, a brand that we are very familiar with. It was founded in 1943, right? And I'd like to share this because for IKEA, the Kamrat family, we see that there is personal family involvement in facilitating employee engagement. Yeah, and they call this as the IKEA's way. And this is important for IKEA because they have invested time and resources to do this, to train their employees worldwide. And the reason why they are doing this is because they want to ensure that they involve their employees in terms of ensuring that culture is being embedded in the organization, and at the same time they want their employees to be active as a brand ambassador. Yeah, so they are getting their employees involved to carry the brand of IKEA, right? Not just the family. So you could see that, you know, since 1951, they have gone through 5 rebranding, yeah, changing the look, the color, the feel of the logo, and finally in 1983, the, you know, the infamous yellow and blue logo that we are so familiar with. Now that is IKEA in Europe. I want to now move on to a brand that perhaps many of you are familiar in Malaysia. This is Kumpulan Media Karangkraf. Yeah. So Kumpulan Media Karangkraf, they have been around for more than 30 over years, close to 40 years. Yeah, we call them the Yaacub family. We've been going in and out, understanding the family business for the past 10 years. And the green boxes that you see at the top is the values that we have uncovered yeah, from the Yaacub family. So the picture you have here, you know, you see Datuk Hussamuddin together with Datuk Nasir, which are the founders, and those standing up behind them are the second generation. Not just from the two of them, but some are also nephews and nieces of Datuk Hussamuddin and Datuk Nasir. Yeah. So some of the values that we see here are the values of faith, the value of resourcefulness, the value of commitment. Yeah. So in whatever they do, they leverage on this inner strength of the company, and this actually takes them through from one generation to the other. All right, I'd like to share what Shamil Fahim, the second generation of the Yaacub family, spoke of in this particular video. You could see the YouTube on succession planning and branding. So Shamil spoke on branding, and you can watch the full video at the link that you see here. According to Shamil, the Yaacub family will have a yearly or biannually meet up with the employees to inform employees that we have to inspire our readers and they have to be passionate about what they represent in Karang Craft. Yeah. So what he's saying is, at least once a year or twice a year, they all will converge together, and the Yaacub family will then impart and communicate to the employees what is important for the family and what is important for the employees to carry on and be a spokesperson or the brand ambassador for Karang Craft, yeah, through their readers. Kumpulan Media Karang Craft has a vast collection of magazines on our newsstand and a large collection of books, including the newspaper Sinar Harian. Yeah, so for Kumpulan Media Karang Craft, values must be clear to the core family, yeah, and it is being demonstrated in their actions as well as their projects. It's being integrated informally and also formally, right? And one of the key values that we also discover from this particular case is the values of caring. Yeah. At the same time, they also ensure that the values are passed down, not just from one generation to the other, but values are passed down to also the employees, yeah, within the organization. And this is done through effective communication and also trust among family members as well as employees. So I'd like to then share what is character building. Yeah, many a times our clients and the people that we've spoken to about values and virtues, they say, so what is values? How is the action of values? What is it? What makes up a family character, and so on and so forth. All right. So in the example of the Yaacub family for Kumpulan Media Karang Craft, we see that those in the green box, yeah, those are values, yeah, generosity, charity, integrity, humility, stewardship, as well as caring. So all these values, yeah, is projected through their action. Yeah, for example, the values of generosity, the action of it or the virtue of it is, helping others or giving donation, yeah, and so on. And these values, these virtues, this action becomes the family character. Yeah, how the family behaves is how the company behaves. Yeah, the character of the family will be seen as how the company will behave. Yeah, with good values, the action of good values is virtues. Yeah, so virtues are doing good. Yeah, if you are generous and you donate, generosity is a value, and if you donate to the needy, that is a virtue, that is an act of it. Yeah. If learning is a values that you have, you know, in your organization, meaning it's a learning organization, then the virtue is actually reading and actually, you know, acquiring knowledge. That's a virtue. Yeah. So you could see, if that is the family character, hence that's the company character. Yeah. Of course, the opposite side of virtues is vices. Yeah. Vices are things like greed. Vices are like corruption, you know, throwing waste, yeah, illegally. So these are vices. Yeah. So how you behave in your organization, how clean your company is in terms of, you know, the surrounding and your environment, yeah, reflect on the family character, yeah, and vice versa. So I'd like to share Alderman research here. They do Alderman Trust Barometer. They look at, you know, how there was a special report done on family business, and it says that 75% of the population, of about 15,000 people that they have surveyed over 12 countries, they saw that 75% of the population trust family businesses over non-family businesses. So if you are from a family businesses, then, you know, you have, you know, an upper hand there, because people tend to trust family businesses more than non-family businesses. Yeah. And 66% are more willing to pay higher, yeah, for products or services offered by family businesses. Yeah. So again, if you are, then you should leverage on this. Okay. So going back to the topic of branding, yeah, so positioning yourself, leveraging it on the fact that you are a family business brand, yeah, creates a differentiation for yourself. Yeah. Another one that I'd like to share, I think Manisah has somewhat covered this also, but I want to touch this from an angle of the family. Yeah. So when we talk about control narrative, yeah, meaning what you say, yeah, the behavior of the family members, yeah, you can do this through, you know, sharing your experiences, sharing your stories in the media, and every word and deed that you do, yeah, let it be in a narrative form. Tell your story. Yeah, at BinaPavo, we always encourage family businesses to tell your story. Yeah, because not that people in general like stories, yeah, but it takes you back to, you know, a platform where we are all here in this together. Yeah, we all have stories, we all have, you know, the journey that we've taken, and share this, yeah, to the public, because then they understand the journey that the family business has taken. Manisah mentioned and talk about brand promise. Yeah, so you need to set your expectation there. Yeah, having this brand promise, you have to ensure that you are consistent with it. Yeah, that you will have to consistently, yeah, keep up to your brand promise. Yeah, and lastly, communicating the family brand. Yeah, you need to promote your family brand. Yeah, you need to, you know, you need to show to the public that you are newsworthy. Yeah, don't be afraid of the media. Yeah, because the more people see you as a family in business, the more they can relate, not just to you, but certainly the business, right? So that becomes a positive side to your family firm. But be careful also, because they can be negative publicity. Yeah, and we've heard many stories. You know, one of the most popular I'd like to share with our clients as we go through our workshop is the Gucci family. Yeah, the Gucci family has a very tragic incident, yeah, and it has become a negative publicity. And today, Gucci is no longer represented by the Gucci family in the board, yeah, of the Gucci brand, yeah, which is sad. So this particular slide I like to share because I hear a lot of family businesses telling me, I can't seem to convince my father, I can't seem to convince my parents if we want to embark on a strategy. So let's take an example that, you know, you need to do some kind of rebranding. There is a brand strategy that you want to put in place, yeah, but your parents are not, you know, supportive of it. So this is a similar question, you know, because it talks on strategy. And my advice is, first and foremost, you need to understand what you want to implement. Yeah, make sure you know what is the current strategy. At the same time, make sure you are ready with your proposal. Yeah, you want to talk to employees, not just to your parents, but to your employees. You need to gather information, so read a lot. Yeah, but throughout the process, you need to get your father involved, you need to get your parents involved, you need to get the key stakeholders involved. Yeah, and especially if you are in next gen, make sure that you value, yeah, your parents' feedback. Yeah, so for those of you who are from the first generation, yeah, I know there are one or two of you who are from the current gen, yeah. If your children, the next generation, comes to you and would like to share a proposal to you, lend them your ear, yeah. Give them an avenue to communicate to you and let them share what they have in mind, yeah, and talk about it, yeah, because only when you communicate and talk about it, then decisions can be made. Yeah. Then I want to touch on figuring out what kind of family are you. Yeah. What type of a family are you? Are you a family in harmony, or are you families open to conflict? Yeah, because, you know, some families, they are just, you know, so happy, and it looks like everything is, you know, fine and dandy, right? But it can be negative also when it comes to having to make decisions, because then families in harmony, they tend to be afraid to upset each other. Yeah, because they always want harmonious situation, and it's hard to talk about matters that requires difficult decisions. All right, as opposed to families open to conflict, they can't even communicate to each other, right? And they are always at loggerheads, and they struggle to connect with each other, right? So regardless whether you are a families in harmony or families open to conflict, it's okay. Yeah, that's just, you know, built within us, you know, in our genes, and that's part of the values and the makeup of your family. But acknowledging whether you are a family in harmony or families open to conflict, acknowledging that, then you'll be open to figuring out how then do we move forward, knowing that these are our parameters, knowing that these are our shortcomings. How do we then come together, communicate, and then move on to implement a strategy that we want to put in place, yeah, for the company. So this is one of my last slide, and I like this quote, yeah, because it boils down to values. As you make your way through life's journey, I hope you will do so with integrity as your guide, humility as your virtue, and the pursuit of excellence as your choice. Yeah, so this is from Tan Sri Datuk Sri Dr. Jeffrey Chia of Sunway Group. Okay, so I'd like to just share this. If you want to communicate with me or send me an email, then my email address is there. But I also want to share with you the hashtag that I have up here, which is communication. Yeah, and at BinaPavo, we believe that communication is so very important, because if you do not communicate, not just within among the generation, but intergeneration, if you don't communicate, if you can't communicate, then they will not be cohesion. Yeah, if there is no cohesiveness, togetherness, yeah, if there's no togetherness, then you cannot move to the next level. Hence, there would be no continuity. Yeah. So to end my session, I'd like to say communicate, come together, yeah, so that your business can continue from one generation to the other. So with that, I end my presentation, and I'd like to open to questions, which you can post your questions at the chat section. Do you have any questions?
Okay, so I think there's some questions that came in from me. I think when you stepped out, actually like forced him to write some questions for me, so I have some here.
It's okay, go ahead.
So the first one, somebody asked, so I want to partner up with with the current situation, I want to partner up with other parties, and look at how we can collaborate and make money together, since I'm very limited by what I can do right now. So how do I know whether a partner is right for me or not? Okay, so the answer to that is, now that you know what is your brand promise, based on the updates from the current MCO lockdown or COVID situation, right? You've updated your how and what. You know you're reinforcing your why in that brand identity articulated by the brand promise. So what you need to do is you need to compare to the brand promise of your partner, and particularly pay attention to the why. Their why and your why, do they match? Because if they don't match, you find that you will struggle in the partnership. If they don't match, you will struggle and there will be friction. So it is very important that you have a common purpose that you're working towards. Especially if you're a family business, there is responsibility to preserve your original why that the founder started with, right? So that's the first question. And the second question that I have here is from Sunny Lee. So he's from a university environment, and he has a question that now that universities are hopping onto virtual exhibitions, what are the factors for us to consider when choosing a virtual event service provider? Okay, so Sunny, so this is the situation when it comes to the universities. The fact is, sometimes what happens is that the lecturers may not be actually ready or be suitable for running a webinar, may not like running a webinar or preparing for a webinar. And when it comes to the students, some students themselves may not be ready for such a facility as well. So that's why it's I think it's very important that the universities, when they choose a service provider, that they get it right from the very beginning. So I would say you need to look at five factors that's most important to you in comparing between one service provider and another. First one obviously is pricing. If possible, you want the service to be free, but free is not always cheap. It can be actually expensive. So study what you get out of what you pay. Okay. Secondly, security. I think Zoom had a bit of a ruckus recently because of issues of hacking into calls and whatnot. So you need to understand the tools you're using, the security feature, especially with regards to information that is shared on the platform. And then the third factor that you need to consider will be track record. Look at testimonials of users of the tools. If they're not providing you information on that, you can do research online to see whether anyone has said anything bad about using that tool. Downtime is something that we'll look into as well in terms of track record, because what you wouldn't want is to use a tool and suddenly it's not working while you're using it. And then when it comes to, I'd say, usability, I can break down more factors for you to consider. The technological reach, because you might have students who are in areas which doesn't have good coverage, right? And ability to record, preservation of your IP, how can a service provider support you on that? ability to remarket, using the contents that you come up with and being able to remarket what has been shared, especially if you have like guest lecturers that a lot of people are interested in. Ability to control, and then ability to nudge, because I think a lot of lecturers have an issue of students, they log on and then they go missing. Leilanie, is that right? so
I have not been involved in the lockdown with the students so far.
Maybe I should ask Sunny about this experience.
Yeah.
But what's for sure is that I think you need to look at what environment you're in. So like our company, we're in the Google environment, so that's why it's just so much easier for us to just hook on to Google Meet, use it with Google Drive and Gmail. But if you're in a Microsoft environment, you might want to use Microsoft Teams that couples their offering with notebooks. But study all these different factors, and then you will get your answer. So there's no right or wrong, but there is a right or wrong for you, for your university. So study all the different factors, and then look at what would suit you best. But from the branding perspective, from the brand positioning perspective, if you're a university that takes on the position that you are current and you're very flexible to adopt and adapt, then you got to make sure that the tool that you're using lives to that brand promise. Yeah. So that's an additional factor that I would throw in considering whether a virtual learning tool is suitable for you or not. Okay. All right. Okay. Any other questions?
Okay, we don't have any more question, or maybe we can take one last question.
But I do have a question for you, Leilanie.
Oh yes, okay, go ahead.
Okay. So when you talk about values, right? I think it's very normal and natural that when times are good, things normally work out within a family business environment. And then when times are tough, then that's where you see the true colors. When certain family members they get greedy or they want to protect their own interests more than other people. So what would be your advice to a business owner like me if I want to make sure that in my company trying to sustain or survive any kind of situations like currently the new normal that we've got right now, how can I make sure that to some extent all that personal interest is managed, it doesn't overpower or takes on the business such that I lose the brand identity of my business.
Okay, so it is quite normal. What you're going through, for example, is not something which other companies are not facing. Yeah, because at the end of the day, we are all humans, and we are, we're all humans in business. Yeah, and so going back to your question, regardless how you look at it, I think at the end of the day is you need to take a step back and allow communication to take place. Yeah, take a step back and allow communication to take place, because if we fall back to values, yeah, we all say that we have, if you say we have good values, then we need to take a step back and say, what are those values? Write down and say, what are those values? And then ask yourself, are we behaving according to the values of what we have set on ourselves? Because what you have set for yourself is also, the company's character. Remember, your family brand, your family character is the company character. So if you've kind of, people tend to forget, okay, or they take it for granted. So write it down. Yeah, write it down and say, have I acted on that? Have I acted on this? Or do I have vices instead? Right? Okay. So once we are aware and everything is on that sheet of paper, once we are aware, then consciously you need to tell yourself, how do I then address this matter? Yeah, because there's no shortcut around it. Yeah, but there are techniques on how you can actually mediate the situation. One of the techniques I mentioned is by writing it down, acknowledging it, and then figuring out how to address that, and then come together and discuss. In an example of one of the clients that we had some years ago, whereby they can't even look eye to eye.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay, but a decision needs to be made. Yeah, with regards to property and passing the wealth to the next generation. So in a case like this, then that's where we recommend a third party to come in. Hence, that's why we came in. Yeah, because if the two members of the families cannot talk with each other, then it's advisable to bring a third party to mediate the situation. Yeah, to carry out this exercise. Yeah.
I guess to add on, I guess if you talk about the brand message, the rollout of the brand message, the brand culture, it's something that I guess you can't just focus on outside, but you need to also focus internally as well, and within the family structure, so that everybody is I guess on the same page, and they are living the values and the values of the living the values of the brand.
Yes, yeah. So I think this is where Kumpulan Media Karangkraf is very good at doing so, and I believe IKEA also in that example. You need to communicate, not just telling your family members, but also telling your employees, yeah, so that everybody is on the same page. So I hope I answered that question, Manisah.
You got another question.
Yes, so this is a question from Vinzu, yeah? Okay, so I'll take this question. So the question is, but one risk is that if a member of this family makes a wrongdoing, it may affect the benefit and fame of the family company if they set the family character as the company character. Yes. So in a family business, we cannot escape that. Even if it is not a family business, the wrongdoing of a senior management member, a senior management team member, will reflect the company character. Yeah, because if there is corruption, for example, doesn't that reflect on the company, even if it is not a family business? Yeah, so bear in mind that for a family business, the likelihood of people to trust the business is higher than non-family business. So more reason why, or more reason why the character of the family reflects on the company character, and hence what you do good, you will see good out of the company. What you do bad may reflect bad on the family business. But we are only humans, and humans makes mistakes. And sometimes if it doesn't happen at the second generation, it may happen in the third generation. And there's always as they call it, a bad apple or a black sheep in the family. So now the issue is, how then do you manage the brand after a crisis? So how do you manage it, right? So I think what is important is to ensure that if there is a wrongdoing in the family business, acknowledge it first. Don't just sweep it under the carpet and think that it will go away. Because with social media right now, and with everything being online, chances of it going away is not going to go away that easily, right? So you need to acknowledge it, you need to address it, and then find ways to improve the situation, and then move forward. I think that is important. Then if the public sees that, if your customer sees that you do not allow wrongdoings in the company, then they know, okay, this company, this family business has integrity, and they do not accept any wrongdoings. They address it, they fix it, and then they move forward. Then the public, your prospective customers or your current customers, would have more regard on your family business if you were to do so. Okay? All right, I hope I answer your question, Vince.
If I can add on, so of course, you've got brands like BMW that managed to create. It's a family brand, but they've managed to actually create a brand that is in front and not so much the family. So whatever that's going on with the family is all in the background. So what you may want to also explore is looking at brands like this, where the brand is a brand that is sustaining and existing as an entity, yeah, Leilanie?
Yes, correct. Yeah, yeah.
So then that that I guess manages the risk of having very colorful characters in your family from affecting the overall position of your brand.
Yeah. So some brands, yeah, some families, the decision is to stay away from media. Yeah, which is totally fine if that is the decision that is made by the family together. And of course, if you decide to stay away from the media, that is a decision that should be a strategic decision as well. Yeah, why you stay out of the media, and then let the professionals, run the business, and and trust the professionals that you have within your company to do what is best, yeah, for the company's brand and for the company's image. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it seems that we don't have any more questions. So Manisah, is there anything that you'd like to say before we end the session?
Okay. Let me see. I've shared the link to the form if you're interested to talk to us more about how to go about conducting your digital brand survival audit. So just go to the very top of the chat and you'll be able to find the link. In the meantime, I guess what's important is that take a step back, review your brand positioning, review where you are digitally, and make sure that your brand identity is intact, your brand promise is current, and work on staying relevant to your target customer, because you guys have worked really hard to own that space, to be the one serving your customers. So you want to be able to protect your brand positioning through thick or thin, through the new normal. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Manisah. So with that, I'd like to end the session. Yeah, okay. Because I think I've given my contact. So if you need to get in touch with me, do get in touch with me or with Manisah. Yeah. So thank you everyone for staying throughout this 1 hour 20 minutes. Yeah. With a slight glitch on my end. Yeah. Technology, with technology you can never be sure. And it can never be perfect, yeah, but we go around that, and thank you, Manisah, for taking that vacuum, yeah, as I was away. All right. So so this has been a Think Big series, brought to you by the L Space, the Learning Space, an initiative by BinaPavo. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.